Nobody calls Una numero una, but maybe they should. Ensign Boimler does the Riker maneuver, and flipping over a communicator is the best part. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the seventh rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 7, entitled Those Old Scientists, written by Catherine Lynn and the ever-present, ever-effervescent Bill Walkoff, directed by, you know who it is, Jonathan Frakes. And this entire season of Season 2 reviews is brought to you by Anna Post. Thank you very much, Anna, and congratulations on the new cadet. What's up, Cirroc? Got a brand new episode. This one was freaking nuts. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was amazing, actually. Pretty spectacular. And you know what? We've seen Bill Walkoff's name, and I always want to say, what a crazy last name. You know, you always want to hit that walk-off home run. It's a magical thing. And he hit a home run on this one. Catherine Lynn and Bill Walkoff hit a home run on this episode.
I agree. We knew that episode 7 was going to be the crossover episode. And so we kind of knew what to expect. But he and Catherine Lynn, I believe her name was, Catherine Lynn, are freaking geniuses. When this episode was over, I said these two are freaking geniuses, because not only did they do the crossover, which was a great idea and it's cool, we knew what to expect, but they executed it so well. It was funny. We learned, things about the characters. They melded it in to be important and to be relevant. Pike learns more about his future. Other characters learned about their future. It just the whole thing was mind-blowingly good. I was extremely pleased with the writing and directing of this episode.
Yes, I was too. Not just the writing, directing as well. Jonathan Frakes hit this one out of the park again. I think only Jonathan Frakes could have pulled this off as well as he did, because he has that rich background in the history of not just in directing, but just of Star Trek knowledge in his database. So I was concerned, like, first of all, when the episode starts, I'm like, am I watching the right show?
I thought about that, yeah.
I literally had to stop it, and I was like, this is supposed to be Strange New Worlds, right?
I thought of you when I almost wanted to remind you, but I was like, no, I wish I didn't know. I wish I was in your shoes where I didn't know episode 7 was the crossover, because it opens on lower decks.
On lower decks in animation mode. And so I'm thinking, is this the right show? And then after I realized, yes, it is the right show, I'm like, how are we going to get from this animation into, the real world? And the transition was seamless. The portal was seamless. The way it was filmed, I thought, was excellent. And the story idea was original. This kind of reminded me of Aaron Waltke's episode where he wrote about the what's that? The
Kobayashi Maru.
Kobayashi Maru, right? Mm-hmm. Where they kind of used that storyline, and they had the seamless weaving of old characters, and it was clever in the Kobayashi Maru kind of way, in my opinion, by having this kind of a crossover. The other thing that jumped out at me too was the way that the writers captured the personalities of Boimler, and I was like, are these guys writing for Lower Decks too? Because the writing seemed like it was the same from Lower Decks, right? I mean, as far as Boimler and Mariner's lines.
I agree. And so I'm going to try to look up Catherine Lynn, because I know Bill Walkoff's not, but I thought there was going to be a third writing credit for Mike McMahon, because I was like, how did they get the voice of these characters so good and the writing style to where they were writing a Lower Decks episode? And then when the Lower Deckers came in to the Strange New Worlds universe, they were acting like the Lower Deckers. They were not acting like the translation of what Boimler and Mariner would be like in Strange New Worlds. They were acting like Boimler and Mariner in Lower Decks, but in Strange New Worlds, as I also phase in and out and do crossover myself.
Yeah, that is one of the things I thought was remarkable about the dialogue, and also the performance that was given by our Lower Deck cast members. Tell me Boimler's name, because I don't know the actor who plays Boimler's name. I know Tawny was fantastic in this episode, and just like,
yeah, Jack Quaid, who's also in The Boys and a few other things. But yeah, those two killed it. They just, it was perfect. Boimler still had his little signature butt waddle when he walked away in one scene. He went, which was great. I thought that the writers did such a great job of doing the meta jokes. A lot of meta jokes, like when Boimler says, or I think it was Mariner says to Boimler, she's like, have you noticed how everybody here talks really slowly? And he says, yeah, and quietly too, because they're so like hype, 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 hype. And you know, Strange New Worlds are like regular people. So they're like, it was just funny to see such a contrast, but that it worked. Like it was one big giant joke, but also totally real, totally canon. You know, it's just brilliant. It's never been done before, to my knowledge. This was very new to me and extremely well executed. I expected to enjoy it, but on top of enjoying it, I was just extremely impressed by it overall. I'm going to keep just saying that throughout the whole review.
Yeah, and I'm going to give specific examples of what I was impressed about. For example, no sharing of knowledge of the future, no personal attachments. That was what La'an's advice.
Beautiful.
To Boimler, which was great callback to her having the time travel experience a couple of episodes back, where she falls in love with Kirk.
Yeah.
And the callback to that was just a great callback. Like, hey, I know what you're going through in this time travel situation, and here's the guidelines. You know, no sharing of knowledge of the future, which was a theme brought up several times. And then the no personal attachments was a personal thing for La'an, because she had that attachment moment. So I thought, what a great way to weave, because they do this tapestry of weaving in past storylines. And that was one of the weaves that I noticed. The other one was, of course, Spock and his humor and his human-like kind of lean.
That was creepy.
Towards,
when he was just like,
yeah, and the close-up on his teeth, like just like a close-up shot just on his teeth.
Or when he laughed, he's like, ha ha! And we're like, what the hell just happened? Spock. Snap out of it, man.
But a nice little callback to the Spock with emotions, which we just saw a couple of episodes back. So here we are. They're making all of these callbacks, right? They made the callback with Nurse Chapel, and her talking about, the feelings that she had. And that was what caused Spock to change his personality. That conversation with Boimler and the turbo lift that kind of gave us a little backstory to, reference to the backstory we had already gotten. I think these were just lovely, amazing tie-ins that just weave the story in so well, in my opinion. It's just
and they're affecting how future episodes go. Like they say these are all bottle episodes or they're episodic, but they're not really, because the kind of the rule of a bottle episode or something fully episodic is that everybody goes back to one, or everybody goes back to their priors. At the end of the episode, everything goes back to normal. But it doesn't in this. Like, after this episode, Spock could very well go back to being Spock and not trying with the laughter. Because remember, the conversation he had with Boimler is basically telling him, okay, so you know me as never joking, which tells me that I'm not going to be like that. So why am I continuing this charade if it turns out it's just not going to work out? So little things like that show, Pike now is getting more knowledge about his future. A lot of people are. So now they're not going back to one. They're not going back to their priors. Their characters are slightly more developed. Their character arcs are now hit this episode and go into a slightly different direction, and that's just great storytelling, because that's what we want. They could have the episodes again be bottle episodes in and of themselves, as long as the characters are still developing, and the character arcs and the character stories do continue to develop, even when the crisis of the week or the story of the week ends. But I really liked it.
Yeah, and like I said, these tie-ins, these subtle tie-ins, the way they weave these stories together. Like, for example, Boimler having a poster of Una, a recruitment poster of Una in his room, and that poster says "Ad Astra per Aspera," which is the name of another episode that Una was, featured in her trial. And so, awesome. These are like amazing. They're like advanced level tiebacks and callbacks, and just I love the tapestry that they're weaving when they're putting these stories together. And it gives you just one thing after another. Spocks Laugh, on the dumb luck line. I loved it. When he's like, assigning intelligence to chance is ridiculous. And I'm just like, wow, this is such a well-written episode.
Yeah, a little bit more on the pinup poster when when Tawny or Mariner says, "Oh yeah, Boimler's got you in a poster, in his bunk or his bunker," and then Rebecca Romaine does great acting where she goes, "But like a pinup poster?" And then of course, not to be outdone, Tawny with her fantastic acting chops. I mean, first of all, I just thought it was hilarious the way Rebecca Romaine said pinup poster. It was perfectly delivered, funny line, but really well delivered on top of that. And then Tawny does the same, where she says, "Yeah, it's a poster that's pinned up. Are we talking about the same thing?" I watched that scene like 3 times. I'm like, this is too good. Well written, perfectly executed. Jonathan Frakes, maybe he had a tough job making this the perfect episode, or maybe he was just like, wow, these guys are good at what they do. I can just sit back and laugh. But either way, the final product worked. And there were tons of scenes like that, Cirroc. Like I was laughing throughout, and it wasn't just laughing at like dumb jokes. It was laughing at intelligent, meta, self-deprecating kind of humor. It was unbelievable. And it started, first of all, with the theme song. The Strange New Worlds theme song was animated in the style of Lower Decks. And the ship, the Enterprise, was flying through during the theme song, during the opening credits, with that little bug alien thing biting onto the nacelle that that they have on Lower Decks, the thing that's like hanging onto the nacelle of Lower Decks, and it like stops and looks at you like that. It did that. I was just like, these guys are taking it to the next level for us.
I thought so too. There were just meta deep cuts in this episode. I thought, for example, when Boimler's on the bridge and he's telling the crew, "Hey, I know how to track that Orion ship," and they're like, "Yeah, but that's future knowledge." He's like, "Well, you don't have to look, just don't look." And the look on Rebecca Romaine, who she did a great job of like, "We can't do that," and then she kind of does look over at Pike like, "Can we?" And he said, and Anson Mount's facial expressions they're gold. They're comedy gold. They're just gold. They're even drama gold. He can hit whatever note he wants to with his facial, but he does it on looks, and he can say a million things in one look. Like the look of disapproval, frustration. This is ridiculous. He just says all of that in his looks. But when Ortega says, "Hey, look, Future Boy did it," I busted out laughing. That's a great line for her to call him Future Boy.
Yeah, I want to add to real quick. I want to jump on the Pike train. That guy can move mountains with facial expressions. He doesn't need a line.
Yes.
He's very good at that. There are a few actors that we've seen that you don't need to give them a line. Their line is in their facial reaction, and we're good with it. Celia does it a couple times as Uhura, just with a look or a glance or a smirk, But yeah, Pike, he just does she's like, we can't do it, can we? Well, I don't, he just kind of gives a look like, I don't know. But anyway, what were you saying?
Those are the looks to me. It's like he's just the master of those looks. I like when you compliment him. For example, Boimler did a lot of, complimenting slash, infatuated,
groveling.
Like a little bit of groveling. But when he says, "Yeah, and you're really great hair," and Anson's like, you like my hair, huh?
Maybe this kid's not so bad after all.
Yeah. And he says that in a look, though. He says all of maybe this kid's not so bad in a look. So I get all of that in one look where he's kind of like, he looks up, well, he's got good taste in hair, obviously. So can't be that wrong, And the whole episode, and by the way, I think I'm going to spend the rest of this time talking about Tawny Newsome. She is a star. Not only on her show, but when she crosses over and works with these other casts, she shines as bright as anybody on that show, if not the brightest, because her comedy, there's an ease in which she performs with, right? She's anti, to me, the teachings of the Federation of being proper and protocol. She's so natural and just, this is my personality, and her personality is so big that it's able to just consume whatever set she's on, whether it's as a voiceover actor or as we see in this case, in person. She is just as phenomenal as she is on Lower Decks as a voiceover. So I was just blown away by her performance in this episode.
Yes. Okay. Here is something interesting to note very quickly, because what we suspected has got to be true, and it is. Catherine Lynn has worked 10 episodes on Star Trek Lower Decks as executive story editor. In other words, she is in the writer's room. Because I was like, there's no way.
There's no way he captured their voice that well.
Right. The writing voice.
The writing voice.
Clearly, that's why I expected Mike McMahon. But Catherine Lynn obviously does work in the writer's room of Lower Decks, at least for the entirety of season 2, possibly, future episodes as well. So there's our answer. It seemed almost a certainty. We almost didn't have to look it up, but, it seemed very clear. And what's interesting, she also works on Strange New Worlds throughout season 2. She's basically a producer on all of the episodes of season 2 so far, so presumably the entirety of season 2. So that was a perfect fit. What we have is a lady who's a writer on one show and then goes over to the other show. So of course she's the perfect person, along with, Bill Wolkoff, who's, a staple in Strange New Worlds. The two of them, it's a dream team right there. And that's why this episode worked so well. We could talk a little bit more about that a little later. I didn't mean to change the subject. Back to Tawny. Look, Tawny, like you said, she's a star. She brings the energy. But she just has that certain, like, you know, a little charisma, a little extra charm, a little extra it factor that they talk about, you know, that makes you kind of lean in a little bit more when she walks on set, even when she's not saying anything. You kind of watching her and her reactions. I noticed that they, you know, obviously made Boimler's hair blue. They made Tawny's hair just like Mariner's, you know, so they did their due diligence. Tawny here has the sleeves rolled up. So just, you know, all these attention to detail, of course, those are kind of superficial, but the non-superficial stuff was, you know, the writing and the acting and the directing. And Tawny, it almost makes you wish that they would go back maybe and do another episode like this, kind of like how Deep Space Nine would do mirror universe episodes every once in a while. It would be cool if they did this one or two more times throughout the run of the shows. Or, you know, let's say Lower Decks ends after 7 seasons and Strange New Worlds is on season 5. So they're like, hey, let's hop over and do one more episode on Strange New Worlds. And then maybe Lieutenant Boimler could be part of the show, or I don't know. Now what they're doing, they're so creative that the possibilities are truly endless.
That's to me what makes this so original, is that it's a crossover from animation to a live action show. So that in itself, like, is a really big risk to take if you don't pull it off the right way, because you could be almost sabotaging 2 shows at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. People will hate both shows because they don't like this, possibly. But they pulled this off, I mean, as good as you can do it. I mean, it was just classic writing. When, you know, going back to Tawny, her delivery, I just kept writing A+, A+, A+. She kept getting an A+ on delivery from me. And that's when I realized that she can not only deliver the performance with her voiceover work, which she does a fantastic job carrying Lower Decks with that, but she can also deliver it in person with the same effects, the same emphasis, the same facial expressions to match the way and style of expression she uses. So I was blown away by Tawny. I literally wrote A+ actor several different times here. Like when she starts to say, like, seriously, I fell through the porthole. There were like 0 instructions. And I busted out with that. And then when Spock agrees with her and she says, and she gives Boimler a look like, Spock agrees with me. Like, no,
that was the line I was just about to say, was she said, hot Spock agrees with me.
Yes.
She goes, see, hot Spock agrees with me. It's so cute. Loved it. Yeah. And then she says, what was the other line? Another one she said, she was talking about the Nausicaans are, you know, she talked about Domjot. Domjot and Nausicaans, that is, again, Cirroc, is a reference to Tapestry, the Next Generation episode Tapestry, with our Lieutenant Picard, Lieutenant Junior Grade Picard. There he is, everybody. He's got a green shirt, so you can't really see it, but so Nausicaans, and they go, "Hey, Domjot, human." That's what they say through, like, and they're terrible at the game. It's kind of like a game of pool. But then she says, she said, "Oh, that's why." Unbelievable. She said, who was it? Uhura says, "Oh, I feel better now because I figured it out." And then Mariner's like, "Oh, that's why. It's not because of the 5-minute break that I made you." Unbelievable. Or just, when she said unbelievable, I laughed out loud. I can't tell you how many times I actually laughed out loud. I didn't just say, "Oh, that's smart and funny and witty," but I actually verbally laughed out loud. There were at least a dozen parts. Well, and we'll talk about those parts.
She's made for this role. I could watch her in animated form, and I can watch a spinoff series with her as that same character. She is that good. She can carry any show, and this was a perfect example of it to me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a bit more about this, including some actual, like, look, tons of humor. and we'll cover all of the humor. But there are also a couple really poignant points as well to bring up that I thought were very important as well. Very good, very smart stuff. So everybody stick around. We've got our break coming up right now, and we will be right back on the Seventh Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc freaking Lofton. You know what we're doing. It's Star Trek Strange New World Season 2, Episode 7, entitled Those Old Ass Scientists. Here are the trivioids of the week. And they go as follows. Nobody calls Una numero uno, but maybe they should. The Cerritos is visiting the Krolmuth B portal, which I thought, I was like, is that something from the original series? I don't remember it, but no, it turns out no. Starfleet used heronium in the original NX class. It's lightweight, it's durable, and it's just the right shade of gray. Shades of Gray is the worst episode of Star Trek The Next Generation ever, so look forward to that.
Oh, wow.
It's, well, in my opinion, much worse. It's in the second season, so look forward to that. Flipping over a communicator is the best part, which was an adorable line. Boimler does the Riker maneuver. Freaking amazing. He hops on, he goes, Riker, when he jumps on the saddle. Great. In the future, Captain Pike's birthday is a holiday. Ensign Boimler seems terrified of number 1. Tendy's great grandmother is on the Orion ship Devar. The full name is the Devar Burton. Ensign Mariner requires grid. Very funny. That felt like an improv line, right? I require grid. Ensign Boimler has a pinned up poster of number 1 in his bunk. Boimler dressed as Pike for Halloween. And Commander Ransom thinks numero una is the hottest first officer in Starfleet history. Boy, we had so many non-appearance mentions today, too.
Yeah,
we had Riker. We had Worf. Like when Boimler says, Worf's honor. Ah, shit. You know, funny.
Yeah.
Mariner, I believe, said, thank you, or something, you know.
Something with Q.
Oh, my Q, something like that, right? Then they mentioned Archer from the NX Enterprise. Travis Mayweather, played by our good buddy Anthony Montgomery. They named Hoshi Sato as well. Linda Park. So and some people like Travis and Hoshi and Archer that hardly ever get any love. It was nice to hear them being mentioned and name checked. That was really cool. Did I miss any?
That's all I got so far. Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Okay.
Unless they mentioned Kirk, but I'm not sure if they did mention Kirk. But yeah, so I thought, man, I was happy to hear Travis Mayweather because I was like, hey, that's my guy right there. You're finally getting the shot out. It's about damn time.
Yeah.
So I was happy for that. And I don't know. I think everything worked for me. I loved when Tawny says, "It's Uhura. Don't ruin this for me. I will end your life." She just knows how to deliver lines amazingly. I mean, just like exceptional. When at the end, when the Orions were talking with them in the final scene, and she was like, "Yeah, we're from the future," and then the Orion says, "I don't get it," and she says, "I feel like he doesn't listen." The way she said that, it's her personality shining through. She's so natural at just being herself and letting that shine through in her performance. I think that's what makes it exceptional. She's not trying to play a character. She's just letting the character become her. And I think that's what shines when I watch this. I love what she says, 100% profesh. How hot, how hot is Spock? I didn't know how hot Spock was going to be, So she says 100% profesh, and I just, those little things, that's only Mariner can get away with slanging words in the way she does and being as animated as she is. She's literally animated when she's not animated.
Yep.
And that's an amazing quality that she has. I loved it. The scenes with her and Celia, I thought Celia was amazing as well in this. There was moments there when she said, "It's a lot of pressure on me, being Uhura, and I don't know how people are going to look at me in the future, but this is what I'm going through now." I thought there was a nice little heart-to-heart moment that she had, which gave us some exposition on the character and how Uhura is feeling at this present time. Obviously, Pike likes to be flattered because he responds well. He responds well to the flattery from Boimler. He, as many times as Boimler kind of said stuff to him, he would kind of do one of these looks like, "Well, I like this guy because he likes me." When he found out he dressed up as Pike for Halloween, for example, he's like, "Ooh." He did one of those like,
smart kid. Man, he's going places.
Yeah, exactly. So I liked all the references. And even the fact that Tendi started the episode out talking about how Orions are being stereotyped and that her grandmother was a scientist, and then them tying that back into the storyline to make it come true in this episode. Essentially, they actually made the Orions accept the scientist designation of discovering this porthole, which was a great kind of twist, so that Tendi's story remains true regardless of how it came out to play. I thought those were that's another science fiction moment in which it's good science fiction writing when you can give us those kinds of close those ends and tie those loose ends up.
Yeah, that was the big poignant point that I was talking about, that I was referencing before we took the break, which is that this happens in our own history of our own world, where people say so and so discovered something, but he didn't. Like, he wasn't the first. Like, they say Columbus discovered America. Well, he didn't. Obviously, the Native Americans were there for thousands of years before that. And then somebody could say, well, he was the first European to discover America. No, he wasn't. Even that, I think it was Leif Erikson in like around 1000 AD went to Eastern Canada, North America. So anyway, so I'm sure they were referencing things like that. And it was also talking about, stereotypes, and it really covered kind of a lot of ground in an episode that's supposed to be jokey, but they're making these really important points. They're still going to make one or two important points per episode. They're not just going to make a whole comedy without, any depth to it. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was not just a good moment, but then at the end, of course, when he says, "Okay, scientist," and then the Orion guy said something like, "That's all I ever wanted," or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the line was.
Yeah,
it all worked. It all
worked.
Mm-hmm.
The jokes when Boimler says, I built an Orion ship inside of a bottle. It was a big bottle, and he's just doing the normal Boimler, like putting his foot in his mouth at the most awkward times. And then Pike doesn't look like, this guy, I got to deal with this guy.
How many times did Boimler start to say something about the future, and Pike was like, "You're doing it again," or "Stop it." You don't. And he just couldn't stop himself. He couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
And it was constant.
I can hear you. I'm standing right here. That was another funny line. He's like, "Oh, I thought because of the spatial, the depth, I thought that the sound wouldn't try." I just, little things like that were just hilarious to me. I loved every second of this episode.
So here was one of those little meta jokes. One was when Boimler says at the beginning, he says, "Whoa, the original Enterprise." And he goes, "I mean the second Enterprise, but..." And that's a reference to when we think of the original series and the original Enterprise, it's Kirk and Spock, but it's actually the second Enterprise, because the first Enterprise is in the show called Enterprise with Archer and the NX-01. So that was a nice little meta joke, because we always say like the original Enterprise. Well, the second Enterprise, but and I also thought Mbenga.
Yeah.
I may have gotten the loudest laugh from Mbenga's line, and it was very small. But when they said something about something explodes or it's gonna explode, the element, and he just says, "Explode," you said, and I don't know why. It was all in the delivery, but that delivery when he said "explode," you said, you're not used to Mbenga saying something funny or reacting in that way, and for some reason it just slayed me. And that was definitely my loudest expression of laughter there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, mine happened also in an Mbenga scene, but it was when Boimler first wakes up on the medical bed and he sees Pike there and he's like, and he looks over at Mbenga standing there and he's like, hello. He does like a, like a, oh, hello. Because he's realized he's surrounded by all these people that he knows, right? So I thought that was a nice loud laugh from me. Also got a loud laugh from Ethan when at the end when Spock says she normally does not pay attention. Just it was one line, but I thought it was hilarious because clearly he knows her just from a very small interaction. He's got it already figured out. Yeah. Yeah. And there's another. Tawny's like, I never get caught. What are you stealing a shuttle? I never get caught. And as soon as she says that, boom, La'an runs in there. There's just moments. The pace was unbelievably quick.
Yeah,
I never felt. Yeah, I never felt a moment where I'm like, okay, this scene's too long. Jonathan Frakes, man, he kept the ball rolling. He kept the tempo up. He gave us literally half Lower Decks and half Strange New Worlds. It was a perfect blend. It wasn't too much of one or the other. It was just enough of each.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Which may have been. It feels like that's a really tough task, but it worked. Like watching it didn't feel like it was tough. Watching it seemed like it flowed beautifully. But I would assume it sounds super hard to do that, to blend it effortless. To make it feel effortless when you're watching it. Yeah. But I did notice here are just a few scattered thoughts. When the theme song was going, we had the little alien sucker thing. We also had the koala in the stars from Lower Decks. That was funny. Yeah, the Boimler hello to Mbenga was great. And Boimler saying, yes, 5 digits, totally normal date to be living. And what was another one? When he says Worf's honor, we got that. When he said, Ensign's log, the past, also great. All of these were so good.
I love when he says, no, I'm just appraising the saddle. And he got caught sitting on the saddle.
And he goes,
praising
he's like,
it.
Riker, when he jumps on it because he did the Riker maneuver to get on it. Yeah, I guess you have to say Riker now when you're doing the Riker maneuver.
Yeah.
Also, when, let's see, the Orion says, seriously, you should probably erase what you just did. That was cool. And it was great to see Orions, by the way. I do love Orions. And
I like the actor who played the main Orion in this. I thought he was great too. He had that level of kind of the villain, but not where you hate him. There was just enough villain in him to be like distrustful, but you could see there was enough there to kind of say, well, there's something to work with. This guy, he's workable. I thought he played that fine line pretty well.
Boimler saying, please don't tell La'an was funny as well. When Pike says, okay, any ideas? And Boimler just raises his hand. He goes, not you. Because that was such a running gag where Boimler just keeps trying to help and make suggestions. And Pike's like, dude, please stop. You're killing me. Also very good. Pinup poster was great. What was another one? I've just got nothing but
me
lines.
Too.
Tons and tons and tons of lines.
Tawny said, Mariner says, I didn't want to be here at all. and that had me rolling. Pike, when he says it's been an unexpected day, you could sense the way he paused in there and put the frustrated. It was just everybody was hitting on all cylinders. I really enjoyed everybody's performance. And again, I have to compliment Celia. I enjoyed her moves. I like the Spock in the chemistry lab with Boimler, kind of giving him the rundown.
Says, "Is that bad?" Yes, seek cover.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I just from beginning to end, I couldn't stop really just smiling as I was watching this episode. You know, the fact that the Mariner brought her sense of kind of laissez-faire, laid-back attitude and affected some change. Boimler brought a little perspective for Pike. I thought he gave it just enough to Pike when he says to him, "Hey, look, if you know you're not going to be around that long, wouldn't you, don't you think that your crew would have really wanted to spend just one more day with you?"
Yeah.
When he talks about the Pike party. And I thought, oh, that's a great perspective. Boimler is kind of hitting Pike's, kind of soft spot, saying, hey, you're not going to be here that long. Don't spend it kind of being a hermit. Spend it with your crew that loves you and is going to mourn your absence when you're gone.
I think that's a really nice point there. Because, that's the thing. You always, when somebody's gone, you always think, I wish I would have had one more day with them. And, Boimler is obviously making that point, which was a very nice and beautiful point. I feel like I could just keep reading off things that cracked me up, but needless to say, another one, just a quick one, when Boimler and Mariner are telling a story, and he says, talking about the NX Enterprise, and he says, it had grapplers, and Mariner goes, skip that part, they don't care. And La'an says, I love grapplers. And he says, see, that's so freaking funny. Because La'an's like, I love, of course she loves grapplers. I don't know why, but it fits. Yes, it's all great stuff.
Then also ending the episode in the animation form for the Strange New Worlds cast. So
that was a bonus that we got.
The crossover was kind of the other way around too. If you look at it, like Strange New Worlds cast was on animated, lower decks kind of mode. And that whole party at the scene at the end where they're all drinking and Bang is like, what the hell is in this thing? I laughed at that too. So even the outro, the little party at the end, the animated party, I thought was a nice extra touch.
It was just a complete bonus. It was unexpected. Yeah. I would almost call it unneeded, but it was
a bonus.
Very wanted. It was very appreciated, yes. Right?
Yeah.
That was cool. I did not expect that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And then Spock goes, my arms don't normally do this. It's all wiggling around. Oh, too good.
And the new character that they added, the scientist woman, she had a good scene in this episode too. What's her name?
Pelia.
Yeah, I liked when Pelia kind of had that moment where she was talking about pretending to be somebody and then actually becoming that person. I think that was the gist of that scene, but it was appropriate because Pelia, having lived so long and having seen so many lifetimes, you would expect her to be the kind of fountain of knowledge in certain ways, and she is delivering that aspect of what we need her character to do. So I thought Pelia saying those kinds of words was the right thing, and so they're using Pelia appropriately, in my opinion, in the last couple of episodes. One with the Una kind of being Una's professor in the last episode, and in this episode being the person to reach out to, I think it was Mariner, and talk about pretending to be somebody and all of that. So just great episode all around.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to show how smart I am by critiquing and saying this part sucked or that part needed work, but there wasn't anything. It was not just good, it surpassed all expectations. I think that they should all pat themselves on the back about it. No matter how good they were.
It's another classic.
Yeah, no matter how good they were trying to make it, I think they surpassed even what they expected, because it begins and ends with the writing, and the writing was an A+. The directing and acting, executing those scripts was an A+. Obviously the animation, we know they're great. Just overall, nothing to say but great things. This is something that basically makes Star Trek history. It's a first, and it was beautifully done, and nobody's gonna be able to duplicate this.
No, this is like, in my opinion, like the Trouble with Tribbles.
I was just gonna say, yep, it's like that. Yep,
it's like that.
The trials and tribulations of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, and this crossover will always be remembered. I think it was executed with precision. And the other thing I wanted to say is I enjoyed that one moment where Boimler's getting beamed off, and Spock gives him the "live long and prosper," and Boimler kind of like nerds out.
I love.
Yeah, and that was a great like fade away for that too. So, I don't know. I can't say enough good things about this episode. The whole Spock making jokes was kind of a nice little thing. To, him asking, "Hey, if you're not afraid of losing one of your hands, you can help me out." Just the moments were great, and also got a lot of chemistry between Ortegas and Uhura. I'm starting to really feel the chemistry with that guy.
Friendship there. Yeah,
their friendship. Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about it for us this week on this super bonus amazing episode that everybody's gonna freaking love, or they're nuts. And we could talk about this forever about how many times we laugh, but the bottom line is it was extremely funny, and it was extremely well written and performed. So A+. This could very well get the highest marks. The few years from now, we may look back and see this has the highest marks on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. It's just really good. Historical.
Yeah. And Tawny looked, just as far as the lighting and the close-ups, I thought she really looked beautiful. We talked about that with Dan Liu when he said that he was able to light Celia really good and make her look beautiful. And I felt like she was in that episode, as well as this, really well lit and beautiful and standing out.
Yeah,
and I felt the same as Tawny. I felt the same for Tawny in this episode.
That they had the lighting already set for episode 6, and so then they used it as a test lighting on them for episode 7. What a cool little interesting tidbit that they had the actors come in during the shooting of episode 6, do their test lighting, and then use that further on for episode 7. All right. Let's say special thanks to some people that we think are amazing. And we'd love to see them in animated form. Their names are Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, our pal Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anna Post, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Gu, Dequeue, Neil Akasaka, our good buddy Justine Norton-Kertson, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach-Heid, Julie Manisfee, Marcia Classic Schreier, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. That's it, everybody. Great time. We will see you next time. Whew. Oh, Cirroc, did you enjoy this episode?
I freaking did. I enjoyed it a lot. It was start to finish excellent. I could actually watch it again. That's how much I enjoyed it.
Me too. I too enjoyed this episode. All right.
Yeah, I'm glad you
did. Thanks. All right, everybody. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the seventh rule.